it basically turns out that you don't need to have the best car. You just need to have Max Verstappen, and then it's fine.
Well, it's probably a bit more nuanced than that, but I don't think anyone else would.
Sort of broad brushstrokes.
I don't think anyone else would have got that pole.
No.
And as a result, that's what got him in a position to be able to win the race. What he did was, phenomenal. I mean, he's an exceptional driver. That pole position, I don't know if you watched the qualifying, but seeing the reaction on the pit wall, heads blown of Pierre Vacher, Christian Horner, everyone was like, that was... And even Verstappen...
And this is people who've seen a lot of good racing drivers.
And seen a lot of Verstappen, who's the best, one of the very best.
Yeah, it just feels like he's able to... Like, everyone is driving at the limit, and it feels like he can just push it a little bit further than the limit and still somehow not make mistakes.
Yeah, it's amazing. Each time, I don't know, that drive in Brazil last year, for example, driving through... It's sort of things that other people couldn't do. That pole lap, I was watching it, and the McLarens are definitely going to be 1 and 2, and he pulls that out. It's things, even now, this many years into his career, that he produces these moments that you're just gobsmacked by, and it only adds to his, where he is in the pantheon of the greats.
Let's see if we can work out where he is in the pantheon of the greats, as you put it. I've got a quick fire game for you. This is to determine if Max is the best Formula One driver ever. So, stay silent until you hear a better driver than Max. Are you ready? And do you understand?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Nikita Mazepin. Rubens Barrichello. Ryan Gosling in Drive. He's good. Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris. Frank Bullitt. You've seen Bullitt, that guy that's got moves. Ayrton Senna. Dominic Toretto.
Is that the Fast and the Furious?
Yeah, Vin Diesel.
My kids have started watching that, so I'm now fully aware. No, okay. I'll stick.
Lewis Hamilton.
Okay, I'll change to Lewis Hamilton because... Am I allowed to put an explainer in?
Yeah.
Because I think Verstappen might be the greatest of all time. Seems like he's the quickest of all time, but the record books with what Hamilton has done is still a pedestal above, so I would just about sneak Lewis above him there.
Well, Lewis Hamilton to Michael Schumacher.
Oh no, I'd still stick with Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, there we go. That's that settled. Hello, welcome to The Inside Track, the new Formula One podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the biggest stories in the sport with exclusive access to Red Bull Racing. I'm broadcaster and Formula One fan Rick Edwards.
And I'm sports journalist Matt Madgen. And each week we go inside Red Bull Racing to find out all the latest gossip, all the news from the pit lane, find out who's thriving and who's struggling.
Yes, two straight white guys talking about sport. I think it might just work. This season we are getting all up in Red Bull's grill, literally sometimes, as they fight, and it is a fight, to retain their standing as the fastest team on the grid. Before we delve into the details of the race at the weekend, let's have a look at our Japan race predictions.
I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, I sort of haven't so much. So before each race, not that I did terribly, but we predict who's going to come first, second and third. You get a point for each of those drivers if they're in the top three, so 3 points up for grabs. But then if you get the order exactly right, you get 6 points. No one has achieved that as yet. We're not only competing against each other, we're also competing against AI, blooming AI, and you, the listeners and viewers. So you can submit your predictions by checking out our Instagram stories. Just search at the Inside Track _podcast. Each week we'll pick one prediction to represent the audience, hopefully a bad one. So we know the result in Japan. Max first, Lando second, Oscar third. I think special mention to Charles Leclerc in fourth. Before we get to the scores this week, we should just play a little clip from the last episode in which we made our predictions.
I've got AI's prediction here. I think it's a bit odd. Verstappen to win. Don't think so. Charles Leclerc second. Don't think so.
Any McLarens?
Lando Norris in third.
No Piastri.
No Piastri. So
we're going to get some points back.
I agree with the AI on that.
Both covering ourselves in glory there.
I mean, almost the first thing I thought when it became apparent that Verstappen was going to win was I mocked that bloody AI.
I never saw that happening.
No.
I don't think the team saw that happening.
How's the AI done it?
Yeah, that is.
It's a bit spooky.
That is.
I'm still going to write it off as luck, but
let's see what happens in the next few races.
It's annoying. It got overall. So it said Verstappen, Leclerc, Norris. So it gets 2 points. So not great, but the fact that it got
the winner.
Verstappen winning. This week's audience prediction came from Sasha. Thank you, Sasha. She went with I like hers. First Piastri, second Max, third Tsunoda.
Oh, I love it.
You know what I mean? And she said, imagine the scenes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that place would have erupted. So Sasha gets 2 points for the audience. I went with, it's not awful, but first Norris, second Russell, third Max. So I get 2 points. And you, good from you, actually. First Norris, second Piastri, third Max. So all three
just
on the podium. So 3 points, which means
I beat AI.
You did beat AI.
But
so
I didn't
have
pick the
that AI. Current standings, audience has got 6 points. I am trailing with 5 points. You've got 6 points. AI is still out ahead on 7. I'm going to need one of us to reel AI in.
We need one of those 6 pointers.
Exactly. We desperately need a 6 pointer. Let's look at the race then.
Yep.
We'll focus on Red Bull a bit later, but we do just have to start with Max Verstappen and say that is an exemplary race weekend.
Yeah, I mean, even more impressive when you consider how bad their weekend had been going. In practice, the car just wasn't working. They couldn't get it right. They couldn't get the balance of the car right. They're trying all sorts of different things, which is testament. We talk about Max being exceptional. Testament to the team working, not just him that does it, that gets the car in a position, because it's got to still be a good enough. His car's got to be good to be able to win a race. But then to produce the lap he did against cars that were considerably quicker than him was something else. And then it was just a masterclass. I rarely has a race been more boring when the top three have been decided by just a few seconds, because that moment aside where Norris briefly vied for the lead, it didn't really look like it was in doubt, did it? I don't know how you perceived it, but it just felt like he, while they were breathing down his neck, he just sort of had the control to keep them at bay, I thought, the whole time. Yeah,
I think we went from a Grand Prix where we said, if you were going to show someone who never watched Formula One before, this is the kind of fun you can have, to one where you definitely wouldn't want to show them.
Yeah.
Because it was fundamentally a
processional.
Sort of boring procession.
Yeah, it was a shame. It's slightly that circuit, and also I think they did a big area of resurfacing, and it sounds a bit boring, within Sector 1. And as a result of that, the tyre degradation, the tyres wearing out weren't as strong as they could have been.
And sometimes, sometimes
that can throw a bit more doubt and jeopardy into the race, and so we didn't have that. So once that stop happened and it was exciting, it was sort of done deal, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's very close, actually, to finishing, like the top 10 finishing exactly as they
qualified,
on the grid.
Yeah, not far off.
And I don't know if you saw what Jeremy Clarkson, I don't really follow a great deal of what Jeremy Clarkson says, but he's a Formula One fan. And he was like, we can't keep persisting with tracks that aren't overtaking friendly. And with Suzuka, with Monaco, you do absolutely know that there's going to be very little overtaking action, because they're not those kinds of tracks, particularly with these kind of big cars. And overtaking is the best bit. That's sort of what we're all watching for.
Yeah, I mean, they've tried. The rulemakers
have tried.
The rulemakers have tried, and they're trying again each time.
It's not working.
I know, but it's difficult. They're just hard things to get past on certain circuits, and it is difficult because Suzuka. What is interesting, what makes it exciting, the Saturday is thrilling for Suzuka and Monaco, thrilling, but then you sort of know, unless there's some calamity, what's going to happen, and that's a shame. That's not good. But the reality is they're not going to remove those circuits.
No.
You can't exactly change Monaco. It's quite complex.
Monaco's a done deal.
Yeah, and there's a two sort of Formula One jewels in the crown, so they're not going to move it, and traditionalists obviously would hate that.
Yeah. But it's just quite odd, isn't it, to have, if you sort of take a sort of an outsider perspective,
Mm-hmm.
quite odd to have two of the jewels, and they are,
Mm-hmm.
it's fair to say, that give you boring races.
No, it's true, isn't it? And
That's
I
an
don't-
odd thing.
Yeah.
You wouldn't see that in many other sports, especially ones that are it's such a commercial entity. Like they're so focused on, driving interest, and yet you're sort of hamstrung by these circuits that are difficult. And Martin Brundle, he sort of came back on Clarkson and said, you just got to be a bit patient. And it's like with football, sometimes you'll have a 5-4 thriller, and then sometimes you'll have a 0-0, and you're like, well, yeah.
But then before that football match, it's like knowing the result of the football match near enough.
It's not about the pitch.
Yeah.
It's not you go to this pitch and it's always a 0-0.
See, that's the problem. I think with this one, the reason it felt like it could be different because the McLarens had that greater pace, or seemed to have that greater pace. So
Yeah.
it felt like there was, and if they'd got past at the start, I think they would have dominated the
Yeah.
race, and it would have stayed
Max wouldn't
professional in a
have
different
caught them,
way.
right?
But that was what was a bit disappointing. You almost felt like it could be a bit of a seesaw race, and it didn't materialise. And so it was nearly a good race, but we're mostly talking about that pole lap, or in my head, that's what I think about. My takeaway from the weekend is that one lap rather than the however many laps of the race. One that would have been interesting is if you'd let the McLarens have a bit of a ding dong, because Piastri looked quicker and probably should have get past. And whether he could then have closed on Verstappen, I don't know, but probably not. But
he was sort of saying, without saying it directly on the radio, his point was, I feel quick here.
yeah.
So maybe,
Hi, I'm quicker than the other guy.
and everyone's essentially just blanking him. Like, maybe what?
It's really interesting, the McLaren dynamic. I
Yeah.
find it really fascinating part of the season, because particularly in contrast to Red Bull, how they're going about the season. McLaren want to win the Constructors. They want to obviously win the Drivers' Championship, but they feel they've got two drivers of equal quality and want to give both of them an equal chance. And they're kind of being hamstrung a bit by it. I don't know how you perceive it. That Piastri perhaps has looked a quicker driver overall, and he's not always getting the chance to go for that. So it's a sort of fight, but not a clear, clean fight. And I don't know whether that'll undo it, because at this stage, Verstappen shouldn't be within a point of them in the driver's standings.
No.
That shouldn't happen with the car they currently have. And whether that's going to come and bite them in the arse when you would think Red Bull get quicker, their upgrades come in place, maybe that doesn't materialise. Whether they'll regret how they've played that early part of the season, I don't know.
Yeah. And then going down the order, Charles Leclerc, I think, would be sort of reasonably happy.
Yeah.
Hamilton, again, disappointed.
He doesn't sound happy when you hear him on the radio.
No.
I mean, I don't know enough of what's going on there, but he sort of sounds a bit fractious with his engineer.
It's a bit tetchy, isn't it?
Yeah, and is that just a desperate keenness to do well and get up and running? But I think he's struggling, and I don't know, maybe not all is well there, whether there's going to be a bit of a fallout, but you never quite know.
No, but someone like that, there's always going to be frustration.
Yeah, unless you're right at the front of the grid.
Yeah.
Maybe that just shows him as a born racer, however many years on, from when he's, whatever,
the
17
hunger
years on, he's 18 years on, sorry,
unquestionably.
he's still desperate to win, and so that comes across. Because they can be fractious old buggers, can't they, down the race radio to their engineers.
Yeah,
I think Verstappen's a good case in point.
Yeah.
Tsunoda, the old Tsunoda, I miss him on the...
I mean, old Tsunoda was electric.
Yeah, so we can have, hopefully...
Albon was giving some good stuff.
Yeah, actually he was.
He
That
was really,
unlike... it's very unlike him.
Not really very him.
Yeah, so I quite like that.
It's like he knew that he needs to give the audience something.
Yeah, we need to have someone anchoring down the race radio, because there's not enough of it. And Verstappen wasn't going to do it because he was having a good weekend. But yeah, Hamilton was the one that seemed the sort of tetchiest, I think.
The Mercedes of George Russell and Kimi Antonelli, just solid. They're just
solid, but not. It felt. Did it feel like a tiny step back? Like they just weren't. They're fine. I think they'll be quite content with where they are. I think they might do better in Bahrain.
Yeah, it wasn't their best race clearly, but just that they're
both finishing high in the points,
getting
looking
points.
good.
Sort
Yeah.
of, if you'd said to them, "This is where you'll be
Yeah, I
3
think
races in," I think they'd be.
I think they're pleased with Russell as their leader, and Antonelli.
And Antonelli, I mean, look how close he is to George Russell.
There was only a second or two between them, wasn't there? It was very close, and he's just looked good, and he looks like he belongs. He's not like this young. Like when you see him and you hear him talk, he's like, I think we said this before. He really is a kid.
This is a child.
Yeah. But then when he's in the car, he looks so sort of mature and at ease. I think he will have impressed everyone within the team, and they'll be very pleased that they've made that as their second driver call.
I mean, to be honest, it was a really good weekend for children driving Formula One cars, because you got Antonelli doing really well, Isaac Hadjar doing really well, Oliver Behrman doing really well.
Yeah, great to see them.
All getting points.
Yeah.
All looking like they belong, basically.
Yeah, I never thought Behrman would be able to consistently do that, but that was remarkable that he's there again. And Hadjar I really like. He sort of seems he was so charming and
It's a very sweet sort of. He seems like he's quite excited.
Yeah,
to be
it's like
there.
he's won a prize.
Yeah.
Won a prize to be Formula, and he's just.
And it turns out he's really good at it.
It so happens that he's pretty quick. But I was very impressed by him actually. Yeah. I think after we had those tears in Australia, and he suddenly looks a little bit out of his depth, and actually he's shown since then he's rapid, and you can build on that. He's still so young, as long as you've got the pace. Martin Brundle was saying that the other day. You have the pace to start with, your electric pace. He was talking about Hadjar and Behrman in this instance. You can build everything else on that. Your experience, racecraft, engineering prowess, etc. But both of those guys look like they're there to stay, don't they?
With Aston Martin, what's your take on what's going on there? Are they just purely focused on 2026, do you think? Or
well, they brought in Adrian Newey to focus on 2026. What I'm interested to see whether they'll do is whether they remove him a little bit to try and remedy,
because it's not. This is
because it's not good publicity for them. They're a big brand, they're a team, they're a car manufacturer, and it is worse than I think I anticipated. I know they've talked a lot about 2026, but I don't think you can do that. So it'd be interesting to see if they peel Newey back a little bit to help with the Gremlins, because obviously he's got an amazing brain and he can do some stuff to hopefully turn things around, because that's going to be a long season for them otherwise, isn't it?
That's it, isn't it? Like if it felt like they were kind of just doing okay, occasionally
in the points. Or Stroll's looked all right at points, but Alonso's not liking that car at all, is he?
Not in the slightest. No. Yeah, I wonder if Adrian Newey will get the tap on the shoulder. And go,
sorry, could you help us?
We realise you're busy, Adrian. But,
we got a bit of a problem.
Have you watched any of the races? He's just like, no, I just assumed you were going fine.
I mean, you'd think he'd want to get involved with that anyway. I know 2026 is big, but like if he's such a competitive creature, Newey, that he'll be itching to sort that out. He can't, he wouldn't be able to help himself.
So this has become a sort of unintended theme of the show, I would say. Learning about phrases native to the countries where the races are taking place, and always doing it too late, i.e. after the races have been. So let's learn about Japan. I don't think we're going to top Horse, Tiger from the China episode, but let's see. And this time, Matt, you are going to test me.
Okay, how are you feeling? It's multiple choice this time, so you've got a better,
I think,
rather than the blank face I was drawing on pretty much everyone I got.
I think I feel, but I don't want to jinx it. I really
it's
like
be
Japan.
Your AI all over.
I've been to Japan a few times.
Okay, so you fancy?
I know none of the language, but at least I feel like I've been immersed in the world.
Thankfully, I don't have to say the Japanese versions of them, just the English.
That's very, very disappointing.
So we've got three questions here, three
if you're
phrases
going to do it in English,
for you.
could you at least do the accent?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right.
I did practice it, but I decided at the last minute I just couldn't quite nail it. Right. So here we go. You ready? Primed?
Yes.
Okay. The first one is: there's a cat on your head. Now, is that A, you're very busy?
Yeah.
Is it B, you're unusually calm or gentle? Or is it C, you're confused and overwhelmed?
I think I'm going to go with C, confused and overwhelmed.
You do look both.
Yeah,
it's got to be said. So it's quite an authentic answer, but I'm afraid it's B. Unusually calm or gentle. So like someone sleeping with a cat on their head. They're so peaceful they don't want to move.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about when my cat used to sleep near my head, but she used to sort of get her claws out and it was quite stressful.
That is quite overwhelming.
Yeah.
I can see how you find it. Right, maybe you'll do better at this one. Okay. My cheeks are falling off. Now, is that A, you're blushing with embarrassment? B, you're smiling so hard it hurts? Or C, The food is so delicious, your cheeks are about to fall off. I can't even do that one seriously.
I think I'm going to go with. I think I'm going to go. What was B?
You're smiling so hard it hurts.
I want it to be that. It's nice. I'm going to go B.
Okay, you went B. You're wrong again, I'm afraid. It's C. Ludicrously, the food is so delicious, your cheeks are about to fall off.
Okay.
It's a super cute way of saying something tastes amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, last chance to redeem yourself. I think I got it at the last chance saloon last time round. To borrow a cat's paws. Is that A, you want to pet a cat for comfort? Is it B, you're so busy you can't even accept help from a cat? Or is it C, you're stuck doing something completely useless?
So amazingly,
You know this.
I think well.
I'm going to love it if you say you know this and then give the wrong answer.
Yeah, no. When you said that, I thought I might know this one, and then you haven't given the option in the three.
What do you?
I thought it was when someone says, "Oh, you need like you take help from a cat's paw." It means you're so desperate that you take help from anywhere, because a cat's paw is effectively useless.
Shall I read the answers again? You've almost said one of the answers.
Have I? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So A, you want to pet a cat for comfort.
So rule that out.
B, you're so busy you'd even accept help from a cat.
Okay.
That's.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Fine.
I think
Yeah,
you're
fine.
going to go B.
Yes, okay, fine, okay.
I don't want to give you the answer, but it
No,
sounded like
sure.
you actually had.
Yes.
That is pretty spot on. So
Yes. Okay. Fine. B.
1 out of 3 is fairly respectable because that's as
It'd be
well
quite
as.
funny if you then said no, it was C.
Oh, it is C. No, it is B. 1 out of 3. That's not bad.
But I'm quite happy that I sort of thought that I knew one.
Yeah. There we go. We're learning all the time. We'll be fluent in various languages by the end of the season.
We have a comment on YouTube from Dwayne. I tend to make a rule, which is never ever look at comments anywhere, but this one's all right. Red Bull is a top World Championship team, and in a top team, they clearly expect top results. Right or wrong, it's not a team to learn in. It's a team where you take all your learning experience to become a top driver. There's a bigger picture we don't see as fans, maybe. Red Bull need to minimise their losses, fighting for both World and Constructors' Championship. One driver can't carry the team alone. So, yeah, I think there's some truth in that, isn't there?
Well, if you think for what they're trying to do this season, they made it quite clear that their aim, they dearly love the Constructors' Championship, but they've made it clear that they are going for that number 5 for Max Verstappen. So that is clearly the goal, and they had Lawson in mind to help with that, and now Tsunoda, and it's been made abundantly clear to Tsunoda that is his role, to play second fiddle. So that's their push. But going forward as a team, they obviously want to be winning both things. It is been so hard for some of the young drivers to come through that team and try and make their mark, because the expectation is so high, and it's a ruthless sport, and they can be a ruthless team because they want to win at everything. And people have struggled there. I'm really fascinated to see how Tsunoda goes. People keep on asking me, how many races will he get before he gets cut? Do you think he'll see it through the end of the season? And there's a lot of chat about that on the internet. But I do think he'll see it through the season. I like to think he'll do a good job, but he's going up against a phenomenal driver as well.
There were definitely moments, not in the race so much,
in the weekend,
moments across the weekend where you thought, right, yeah, this could work.
Yeah, so in I think FP1 and the first qualifying session, the first of the 3 qualifying sessions, Q1, he was 0.1 second within Verstappen. Maybe Verstappen was that absolute peak, but to slot into a car that's, Lawson had struggled in was impressive. And I think he'd gone into the weekend with the view he wanted to get points. The team said, you want to get points. And he didn't get that. He didn't achieve that. But he was a little bit unlucky, partly a fault of his and partly a fault of the team. So in Q2, they had 2 runs to do, and they put him out on 1 run on used tyres, and that was an error because he wasn't established in that car, wasn't comfortable enough to be quick enough. So he basically just had 1 lap in which to do it, which is a lot of pressure in a car you don't know so well. And he nearly did it, but he made a slight mistake, which cost him, and he couldn't get into Q3.
Absolutely, like burn it into a corner too far.
Yeah, he did.
I think it's quite endearing.
Well, in front of his home crowd, you could see he was so desperate to do it, and he wasn't a million miles away.
This corner so quick now. Damn it.
But also, I think he regrets like his setup wasn't right because he was struggling with the stability of the car. He went with a bit more downforce than Verstappen did, and he said on reflection probably he should have gone down the Verstappen route. While it was a bit of instability, actually thinks he would have been okay. And you saw what that happened for Verstappen. But yeah, the general sense is they're really pleased with him. He did 2 full days in the sim before going out to Japan. Worked really hard. I think he's pretty much gone straight from Japan to Bahrain. Slotted into the team instantly. Someone I was talking to there said almost the making of him was not getting the drive in the first place. And, he's obviously been a good driver, but he absolutely knuckled down. I mean, someone was saying his trainer said he's been, he's working to a different degree that he's ever seen before, and this has sort of been the coming of him, the making of him. But then what I was fascinated was seeing. And sorry, another aspect, they said in technical briefings and the engineering side of things, he was giving so much more detailed stuff, which they're really pleased with. And in the past, he was just thinking about himself, as we know with the race radio. Yeah. But interestingly, I think it was FP2, he went out on softs for that. And primarily his role there was to garner data on the car to help Verstappen.
Yeah.
Which is a very unselfish thing to do and sort of shows that team player mentality. And then there's another aspect throughout the weekend, some of the clips they put out when you see him on TV, he just seemed at ease at the team. He's suddenly gone, just taking a step up. He just sort of seemed like he belonged. Now, I know we haven't seen that with the result, but it feels, from the outside looking in, there's enough there to think this is positive. Now I say that he's going to end up being 15th in Bahrain or something, but there's a good vibe about him. Now, I don't think Red Bull are exactly going to say negative things at this stage anyway, but there seems to be a positive feeling about his presence in the team.
Although if any team are going to say negative things immediately, it is Red Bull. Yeah. Helmut Marko, any thoughts here?
I didn't hear what he made of Tsunoda's, actually. I didn't hear what his remarks were, actually.
I haven't.
We'll find out. He'll if he's not happy, but maybe that's a good sign. If he's not happy, he says it. So,
yeah. And also, you can't underestimate the amount of scrutiny and pressure and attention that was on Tsunoda. This big promotion, lots of controversy around it.
Home race,
Grand Prix. I think you'd say he handled it pretty well.
Yeah, I think so. I was impressed with it's just the ease with which he seemed to be this is where I belong, and that's quite a good vibe to give across to your team. And everyone seems happy. I mean, he seems a very likeable character anyway.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
But he does need to do better than that. He does need to be finishing in the points. That's what they want him to do. Yeah. Obviously, he's helping Verstappen, but he needs to consistently finish in the points. And, whether they're the first, second, third, fourth, quickest car, he has to be in the points consistently.
And then on Liam Lawson, I was really hoping that he'd do well. And he didn't do well. He didn't do badly, but it was just sort of, I guess it was okay.
It was exciting when they qualified to close Tsunoda and Lawson, and I don't know. I had that turn one calamity. You can see
that felt written, didn't it?
It felt like that was going to happen. Actually, it was an amazingly clean start from everyone. There was no carnage, I don't think. I mean, that's a hard weekend for you. You've been dumped from your dream job.
Yeah.
He kept on saying, "Well, I'm still in Formula One, and that's the dream." And he's got another opportunity, and plenty of other drivers have been spat out by teams in the past, and Red Bull being one of them, and they've come back again.
Yeah.
So.
Also, your ex-girlfriend's getting driven around by some young upstart. The only slightly funny thing for me is that when you look at the 3 young drivers that Red Bull sort of have at their disposal, currently the best-looking driver is the one that they haven't gone for yet, in Isaac Hadjar.
Do you think they'll have a dabble with him later in the season?
I mean, he looks like a really, really good young driver.
Yeah, he does. I mean, he's really impressed me. How I don't know what his, technical expertise is like, and that'll come in time. But the fact is, he's quick. And his team must be delighted with him getting, consistent point finish. He sort of looks like he's in the mix for every race.
Yeah.
Super young. And such as, I think I'm a big fan. I think I've realised I'm a big Isaac Hadjar fan. He just seems such sort of delightful person.
I sort of think you'd be, a bit perverse not to be an Isaac Hadjar fan. There's nothing not to like about the guy.
No, there's so many likable young drivers that sort of have baby-faced assassins almost, because they're lovely drivers, but then they have lovely personality, but then ruthless on the track and incredibly quick. And it's quite exciting, isn't it, when you get a new era of talent? Because these are the guys you would think in years to come that will be vying for the top spots, and to see them in their infancy and they'll make mistakes and stuff is always fun.
Are we missing a villain a little bit? Because in years gone by, I suppose that Max has sort of been the villain to certain sections of the kind of Formula One fandom, although obviously hugely popular himself. But the thing with Verstappen is, I feel like he's on really good form at the moment, just sort of in all of his press stuff. Like he's funny.
He's very entertaining,
and he's
isn't he?
enjoying himself.
Yeah.
And there isn't anyone unlikable on the grid at the moment.
I don't know. There'll be, as soon as there's beef and they crash into each other,
so,
then suddenly,
then
whether it's him to a Norris or Piastri or a Russell gets in the mix.
Because you thought that Russell and him maybe, but that hasn't sort of. There's not much.
It'd be interesting to know, because they all seem so nice with the Norris Piastri thing. As soon as that starts going awry, that might be fun. Will we suddenly see different personalities from those two? I don't know. But there's no truly villainous. Pantomime villainous character at the moment.
No pantomime villains, no sort of obvious needle.
As the season goes on and people are vying for the championship, that naturally just happens because they're competitive beasts. Yeah, don't worry, there's plenty of time for that.
All feels like it happened a while ago now, but did you get any further sort of insight into the decision-making process around Tsunoda in for Lawson?
Yeah, I think I feel so harsh on him, doesn't it? So early, two races in, but they just felt he was out of his depth. I think is it sounds a bit harsh, but that he just wasn't quite ready for this step up, and it was, the pressure was building, and it seemed to be more and more onerous on him, like a big weight on his back, and he was struggling harder and harder and harder through every single session. And I think they came to the view that he wasn't the right person to continue on for the season. Now, not to say that he's an awful driver. They believe he's got the talent and the potential, and he's still very young. Hence, they drop him down to the sister team. But the greater thing is they felt how much Tsunoda had moved on, and it seems ridiculous because it was just a few months ago they decided he wasn't the right driver for them. But they saw the way he changed. I think the team felt he's been an utter transformation, Tsunoda. So mature, working harder, fitter than ever. His technical insights are much better. He's a big team player, and they felt that for the good of the team, he's got 4 or 5 years experience in Formula One. He would be able to bring the RB21 forward better as a car, essentially for Max Verstappen. That's their primary goal.
Yeah.
And the understanding very clearly is that he was the person to do that, and they while it's a harsh decision, they're very certain they've made the right call. Time will tell how Tsunoda does, and it'll be interesting also to see how Lawson does.
I spoke to Helmut Marko about it, and that's pretty much what he said. He said it's sort of about confidence. They felt that Liam Lawson's confidence was shot, and they don't really see it as a demotion necessarily. It's like, we think he'll have a better chance in that car, and also that is something that has been proved in the past. Like, lots of drivers that have struggled in that second seat and have then left have gone on to be really good Formula One drivers.
It was interesting, that interview, because he was very much, pushed that line of it was sort of cruel to be kind, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I found that quite fascinating. He was, it's a bit ruthless, but they've done it, and this happens. People get spat out, but they'll get another chance, and that's Formula One, and prove yourself. And Lawson we talked about that before. He'll be wanting to prove a point, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on.
And what were Red Bull saying about this weekend? I imagine they were just sort of gobsmacked and thrilled.
Yeah, I think they're ecstatic. So that there's, within the race team, great. You could see the euphoria after that qualifying session. You could see it after the race, but it's given a lift to the factory. So suddenly, they're obviously always working hard and pushing, always trying to develop the car and get quicker and quicker. But as soon as something like that happens and they win a race like that, it lifts everyone and motivates everyone further. So there's been that as a collective. I think there were some quite honest conversations after FP2 in particular, where I think there were quite frank discussions, let's say, by the hierarchy there. And you would imagine Pierre Vachet at that point is the technical boss, the new newie for that team, all eyes on him and pressures on him. He must feel a real weight off his shoulders that they've managed to put this car together, because it's impressive what they did. Horner talked about how they turned the car upside down. I don't think it was quite as dramatic as that, but clearly they've managed to extract some pace from this car. Whether that's repeatable at subsequent races remains to be seen.
Are Red Bull sort of happy-ish with the car at the moment?
It's funny because everything you read, it's a monster of a car, pig of a car,
dog of
it's
a car.
Absolute dog. It's horrible, et cetera, et cetera. The RB21, so the car before was hard to drive. Now this is hard to drive. Now, clearly Max Verstappen's brilliant. What he did on pole and to win the race was brilliant. I don't think many or any drivers could have produced that pole lap. But actually, the car is quick. You don't win a Grand Prix unless you have a quick car. So the car is better. It's getting better and better. It's gone from a period of serious head scratching to actually being competitive. I think chatting to within Red Bull, what they're concerned about is their Fridays seem to be car crash, carnage. Everything seems to be going wrong. They can't get the balance, the setup right, and then they suddenly have to magically pull it out the bag for Saturday, and that goes okay, and the race goes okay.
But that's not sustainable.
Yeah, but they need to be able to hit the ground running a bit better on a Friday, and they'll admit that themselves. I don't think they'd be ashamed to admit that the Fridays are not going well. The practice has not been smooth, and they need to do that. Part of that is not understanding the car well enough yet, but I think they'll be feeling I know they're feeling very optimistic that they haven't extricated all the pace from that car. There's more to come, but to win that race, they'll be delighted. And to have less gremlins, it's interesting because at the start of the weekend, Verstappen was talking, this is, hard to drive. He wasn't holding back, but he said something along the lines, this is as good as this could have been. This car, it was a real night and day from Friday through to Sunday, how he was with the car. So that's encouraging. Now, the difficulty is we don't know, does the car behave well in all sorts of windows, or is it a very narrow window where you can get the car just right? So it'd be interesting to see where that's replicated in Bahrain, Saudi and beyond.
Yeah, it has been quite funny listening to people talk about the RB21, and you'd think that the sort of like the seat was a bed of nails, and it was like
you'd be a bit peed off if you were an engineer, if you were Pierre Vachet, one of the
wooden wheels like a hobby horse or something.
Yeah, it's finishing on the podium or winning races. So I think we'll see, but I think it's a better car than people are making out. They're perhaps being a bit harsher, but in some ways, people want to laud the brilliance of Verstappen, and it makes that brilliance more if you're slightly deriding the car. So you can understand how it works to some. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's have a look ahead to the next race on the calendar. So that's Sunday, 13th of April, Bahrain. So in terms of the type of circuit it is, how would you describe it?
So the key thing is it's going to be a lot hotter, and so the tyre wear will be more of an issue. So I think
more stops.
Red Bull will go into that race not being able to repeat what they did. I think in this race, I think it's a circuit that will inherently suit the McLarens. They really should be winning that race. What is interesting, I'm interested to see how Mercedes come. Ferrari look like they're not quite there, but I think Mercedes will be better in Bahrain than they were at the last race. Not that they were terrible, but it feels like after the high for the team in Japan, that Bahrain will be trickier from a Red Bull perspective.
And I guess it's as soon as you start getting more tyre degradation, then your strategy becomes that much more important.
Yeah, so the strategy is key, but also it would appear, and maybe that doesn't end up being the case, that the McLarens will be kinder to their tyres in Bahrain, so they'll be able to have more options. What will be interesting on the strategy thing, so you say that, I know we've chatted to Hannah Schmitz and Will Courtney in the past. Now they'll be making key decisions, and if they're not quite in the mix, maybe he won't qualify top three, Max, they can make some riskier calls of when to pit, how they pit, what their tyre choices are, and so that's quite fun because that throws in a bit more jeopardy, doesn't it?
Where are you going to be watching?
So this sounds less like Inside Red Bull. I'll be sitting on my sofa at home watching with my kids. So
That works.
You'll hear it first.
Yeah.
The sofa view. So very similar to yours. But I am chatting with Red Bull and with Red Bull the week after. But yeah, I'm not going to be in Bahrain.
You're going to be at Red Bull HQ.
Hopefully so. Yes, that's the plan for after the race, in the aftermath. But it's such a quick turnaround between then and Saudi to be able to talk to the key figures.
Yeah.
Some might be from afar rather than in person.
Do they come back, or do they sort of stay out?
So yeah, a lot of them will stay out.
Yeah.
Some will come back, but yeah, the majority, because that's the whole point. It saves costs and environmentally more friendly, etc.
Right, predictions. I've written mine down. So should we do AIs first?
Yes, go on.
Max Verstappen first. I feel like AI maybe just says Max Verstappen first every time.
It's like an anomaly.
Yeah, maybe that. And statistically, that is a sensible guess, isn't it? I suppose.
Well, he won the last race, but there's no sense that he'll win. I mean, I don't want to have playback next week, but I cannot see. I don't think the
this
team
is exactly
can see.
what we said last week.
No, but this seems even hot. I know, even though he's won. Well, maybe I shouldn't go too into that, but I'd be really surprised if he won.
Yeah.
God, I don't want to hear my voice back next week.
Yeah, I hope you do. Verstappen first, Lando in second, Charles Leclerc third. I don't know why the AI hates Piastri so much.
That's so weird. I think he's the quickest, or the quicker of the two McLaren drivers.
I'm not sure that the AI is basing this on sort of. I mean, I don't really know how it works, frankly, but I think it's just looking at sort of all of the historical results without necessarily sort of feeding in anything. I don't know.
It's going to get a clean sweep and get 6 points, and we're going to berate it and then get berated.
And then have to berate ourselves. Yeah, it's sort of.
What have you gone for?
I've gone Norris, Piastri, Max.
Okay.
What do you think? It's pretty. I mean, it's fairly conservative.
I think that's. Yeah, I think it's those top two.
You're going to swap, aren't you?
I'm going to swap. Yeah. So I've got Piastri, then Norris. Then I've got Russell actually at third. This will awe me probably. I feel Red Bull might have a weekend struggle, but I'd love to be proved wrong and to have loads of teams in the mix, and it's not like that. But it does feel McLaren 1-2 at that circuit.
I mean, you'll have a nicer time next week at HQ if they don't have a shocker.
Yeah. I mean,
it will be interesting to be in there when they're cross.
Think they're really good at that, of the access still there, whether it's a crap weekend or a good weekend. You know, obviously they want to have the good weekends and the doors are open and chat about, but actually they're honest enough to go, well, that's when we're learning.
Yeah.
You make mistakes or things go wrong or there are issues. That's how you improve as a team. It's not always by winning. And I think they have some pretty frank discussions post-race. It'd be interesting to see either way.
Are the engineers and all of the people on... Do they kind of socialise with the other teams? I mean, they kind of must do. Like,
there's such an overlap because you talk about the teams being a travelling family, but the wider things, and you've got to remember these people have worked in these other teams.
That's what I'm thinking. So everyone's sort of moved around. So
it's a bizarre extended family. So if you're walking up and down the paddock, you'll see someone from Aston Martin chatting to someone from Red Bull. Yeah. Then you'll see a boss from the team looking nervously. And like, are you trying to poach my engineer or what's happening here? So I always find it interesting when you have those amalgamations of people from different teams. But yeah, they all know each other from years and years of working in the sport.
Okay, that is it from us. You can follow the show on Instagram and TikTok, although this was awful earlier on. Both me and Matt arrived in the studio and said to one of our producers, India, now you sent us some TikToks earlier and we didn't know how to watch them because we don't have TikTok because we're too old. So she had to sit us down and show us some TikToks. Yeah. And they were fine, weren't they? They're absolutely fine. But we are on TikTok. You can also watch us on YouTube, which I have used. Thank you. Links are on the podcast show notes. Send in your predictions for the next race, please. Who's going to make the podium? Give us your 1, 2, 3. You can do that by checking out our Instagram stories. Our Instagram account is @theinsidetrack_podcast. You can also send in any questions or thoughts about the show. Within reason, our email address is theinsidetrack@bbc.com. We will see you at the same time next week to react to Bahrain and look ahead to the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. The Inside Track is funded and made by BBC Studios, a commercial company that is wholly owned by the BBC. It's produced by Nick Thompson. Video editing and social media is by Georgina Revel. James Cook is the creative director.